The Colts put together a feel-good victory last week, but now they have to face the best team in the NFL in the Detroit Lions. Say that right? The best team in the NFL?
Yes, you did, Jake. Detroit is jumping right now.
Man, let's get to it.
You are Locked On NFL Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
All right. Thanks for tuning in and making us your first listen of the day. This is a collab of your daily podcast covering your Indianapolis Colts and Detroit Lions, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And this crossover Thursday, of course, is presented by PrizePicks. Download the app and use code LOCKEDONNFL to win $50 instantly when you play just $5. Hello, everybody. I am Jake Arthur of Locked On Colts, joined by Matt Dery of Locked On Lions. And we are going to get to the truth and the nuts and bolts about this matchup Sunday with the Lions visiting the Colts. But first, how's it going, Matt? You know, the Lions, I've got to imagine for you doing these crossovers every week, you're going to say, hey, this is how the Lions are going to buzzsaw your team. Let me tell you all about it.
Well, a little bit. Yeah. I kind of had some hesitancy about the Houston game. I still picked the Lions to win by 3. We get to the predictions and kind of keys later on in the show. I think this is going to be a close game too, because the Colts play. Every game is close with Colts, with the Colts. Every game you guys play is close. But yeah, it's a pinch me moment right now for most Lions fans. They cannot believe it. This team is 9-1. This week is really the first week where you go on all the websites and you see those power rankings, and the Lions are number 1. And we're talking about a franchise that before last year had won one playoff game since 1957. And all of a sudden, they're off to their best start since 1934. And you're right, they're mauling people.
Hey, I think they're really America's team right now.
Yes.
The Cowboys, they have a trademark on that, but everyone, I feel like Detroit, everyone can feel good about that one. It's like, get these guys to the Super Bowl or something. Get them some wins.
It would be scary. Obviously you guys host many Super Bowls there in Indy, or have. It would be crazy if it was drivable. And I'm going to warn you now, Lion fans are going to invade Lucas Oil. I've told some of my friends down there in Indy that they're going to be very surprised when they see the amount of Honolulu blue in that building. But just imagine if the Super Bowl wasn't in Indianapolis or something like that was drivable. Not that New Orleans won't be for Lions fans, but yeah, everybody feels real good about where they're at right now, and they're playing really good football.
Yeah, so 9-1. Seems like you won every which way. You're blowing teams out. You had the game against Houston where turnover of the ball 5 times, and you're on the opposite end of time of possession, obviously, and you still somehow find a way to win. What's the story for Detroit this week? Is this a game? Hopefully they're not overlooking the Colts from that perspective, but for the Bills, a couple weeks ago, they had the Chiefs awaiting them next. So what's it like with the Lions' point of view right now?
No, I think for Detroit right now, they love the way they're playing, squeaking by Houston and not playing well for that first half. Like you said, the 5 Jared Goff interceptions. They really wanted to play a more complete game last week, and they did against Jacksonville. Now, as you know, although the Colts can never win in Jacksonville, but yeah. The Jags are so bad that the Lions' greatness and the Jags' horribleness, if that's a word, kind of mixed in, and the next thing you know, it's 52-6. But the Lions scored 7 touchdowns on their first 7 possessions. And that's really the top storyline, is that this offense is historically good. There's comparisons to the 99 Rams. They put up the most yards in a game they'd ever put up last week in 465. And with Ben Johnson running that offensive show as the OC, Jared Goff just doling out passes to a bevy of different receivers. The run game is so solid with Montgomery and Gibbs, and the O-line is really good. It's an elite offense. And in this day and age where maybe the last year and a half of the NFL, offenses are not hitting 40s and 50s like they had been. And maybe defenses are catching up a little bit. It's the Lions who are the only team in the league to have 50+ point games, and they're rolling right now, and it's fun to watch.
Yeah, we talked to Gus Bradley on Tuesday, and he mentioned, when he was with the Chargers, to him, this feels like when Tyreek Hill was on the Chiefs, and those Chiefs teams, the offense was just insane and almost impossible to defend, it seems. So offensively for the Lions, it seems like we're all decently well versed in what they can do. Is there anything that ever gives you pause about that offense? Like, obviously the offensive line is awesome, has some just pillars on it. The receiving game is good. Is there anything that you ever kind of have to get a little bit angsty about?
No, not really. I mean, if you ask about the defense, yes, the
There you
pass
go.
rush, but offensively, no. It's crazy to think at the start of the year, the first couple games, they were still trying to click a little bit. They had not played any starters during the preseason, and they were rusty. Jared Goff did not have good games the first two. They were still searching for another receiver because they had lost Josh Reynolds and really hadn't replaced him. But Jameson Williams has really started to come on. Amon-Ra St. Brown is still Jared Goff's number one guy.
Mm-hmm.
Tight end position, Sam LaPorta was so good last year. I think he'll be back this week with the shoulder, but he's almost primed for a breakout game. But you mentioned the O-line. Didn't think it could get any better than it was last year with Jonah Jackson patrolling left guard. Now Glasgow at left guard, Kevin Zeitler at right guard, and the O-line is even better.
Mm-hmm.
With PFF having them as one of the top 3 offensive lines to go into the season. So, no, everything's been really, really good. They protect Goff. He's so smart with the football. Perfect passer rating this past week. The receivers are there. The tight ends, the backs are so good. There really isn't a lot of pause. They feel like for another fast track and an indoor game at Lucas Oil that they'll put up 40 again.
Yeah, it feels like they should be somewhat at home. But so you mentioned Goff got off to kind of a slow start. Obviously, had that game he would definitely want back against the Texans. Did you notice any themes in that? Like, how did the most recent being Houston? What did Houston's defense do to kind of have Goff playing really uncharacteristically? Because that guy doesn't even throw 5 incompletions in a game, let alone picks. That's crazy.
Yeah, I think Jalen Petrie, their safety, kind of coming up into the box. They did a lot of gave him a lot of different looks. D'Amico Ryans in that defense, a lot of different looks. They were in his face. The O-line really struggled in the first half of that game. I mean, you're talking about Penei Sewell, arguably the best offensive lineman in the league. He gave up a sack. Goff was under some duress in that game when it started, and it threw all the timing off. Then in the second half, like you said, kind of slowed down a little bit, made some adjustments, added an extra tight end at times to block, and guys just understood their assignments better. And then last week, like you said, just playing a Jacksonville team that looked like they quit. That was pretty gnarly.
Of course, it would be nice if they would ever quit against the Colts at Everbank, but that's just never the case. It's a whole curse. But you mentioned that defense maybe sometimes gives you pause in the pass rush in general. Just my quick, my quick glance at it, anything I've seen from Detroit this year as well. Like the passing game, maybe there's some opportunity there for the Colts. What about that defense gives the Colts offense maybe any hope?
Well, like I said before, I mean, I think without Aiden Hutchinson, Derek Barnes, Marcus Davenport, John Kaminsky, I mean, all guys they were relying upon to rush the passer this offseason. And Hutchinson had a great start to the year, and of course, snaps his leg in half in the Dallas game, and it's terrible to lose arguably the defensive player of the year. Josh Paschal has picked it up coming off the edge. Levi Onwuzurike moves from inside to outside at times, and the pickup of Zadarius Smith was a good one. He had a half sack last week, and is kind of still getting his sea legs under him in Detroit. But is there more? What if Smith or knock on wood or Levi or Paschal goes out? Is there enough depth on that edge in that edge room to get to the quarterback? And this week, and we'll talk about it in keys, you got a guy that can really run. And I think it sounds like, at least it looked like last week against the Jets, that they finally unleashed Anthony Richardson in the run game. So that's something to watch. And Alex Anzalone, the Lions middle linebacker, captain of the defense, who's played well the last 3 years, he's out and is a broken forearm. I'd feel better about the Lions against AR if Alex was playing, and he's not.
Mm-hmm. Well, it does seem like the Colts have turned the corner a little bit. Obviously, Anthony was sat down for a couple weeks to learn some things and catch up, but it seems like maybe Shane Steichen learned a couple things as well and how to use them. But coming up, we'll talk a little bit more about the Colts, and then we'll wrap things up, with our keys to the game and what we think might happen. All right, listen up, renters. Do you ever feel like you're stuck in this loop of rent payments, just watching your money vanish into thin air? Well, it's time to turn that rent game around and start earning some serious rewards. That's where Bilt Rewards comes in. Bilt is breaking ground as a neighborhood rewards program that hooks you up with points on your rent every month. Pay your rent and watch the Bilt points roll in. Use points to jet off on a dream vacation. Put your points toward a flight or hotel stay with 500 plus airlines and over 700,000 hotels and properties. You can also use those points to book fitness studio classes or even redeem them towards a future rent payment. They're designed to meet your lifestyle. So pay rent hassle-free through the Bilt Rewards app. Your rent game just got a major upgrade. Bilt points have been consistently ranked the highest value point currency by the Points Guys and Bankrate. Earn points by paying rent right now when you go to join Bilt.com/LockedOnNFL. That's JOINBILT.com/LockedOnNFL. Make sure to use our URL so that they know we sent you to. Join Bilt.com/LockedOnNFL to start earning points with your rent payments today. And you guys go ahead and get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers, you guys can bet $5 and get $150 back in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything that you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get the hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You can just kind of think of it as your own little personal betting hub right there. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. In this one, FanDuel has Detroit as 7.5-point favorites, and I get it. I get that one for sure. But the Colts did beat the spread last week against the Jets. So whatever you think, go to FanDuel.com and let them know. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Okay, so the Colts, pretty interesting team right now. It had been looking pretty rough. They were riding a 3-game losing streak, and there was not much hope. Anthony Richardson had, hit rock bottom against the Texans, 10 of 32. That was, well publicized. Then he gets benched in favor of Joe Flacco. Shane Steichen at the time said, Joe gives us the best chance to win. We're just, they basically needed a spark. They needed to spark this thing. But it looked just as bad, if not worse, with Flacco because you at least did not have mobility from the quarterback position. You did not have the ability to escape sacks. And it's not like Joe was making the veteran moves to get the ball out quickly when blitzes were there. Like he was getting hounded.
Yeah.
So the Colts kind of pull their pride and get Anthony Richardson back in there. And they respond with a big win against the Jets. The Jets, I mean, I think they're 3-8 now, so it's not like that was a great team they beat. But the Colts needed a win badly. They needed to see something out of Anthony Richardson, and he responded. That this was the best game of his career.
Well, Jake, let me ask you this. I'm going to cut you off. Let me ask you this.
Mm-hmm.
You bring up a great point. This AR thing, is this owner, we know about Mr. Irsay, all right?
Mm-hmm.
Did he step in? It goes from AR's got to sit and Flacco's the guy the rest of the year. And then 2 weeks in, they pull the plug on that. Who made all the calls here?
Yeah. So this was not a Jim Irsay thing. In my honest assessment of it, and I've asked around, of course we all have. My honest assessment of it is, there were some things that maybe he wasn't doing in terms of preparation and just focusing on all the fine details of being a quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe some things they wanted him to be doing more, and his play on the field no longer warranted, being able to put up with that, essentially. Not a bad kid by any means, but the youngest quarterback in the NFL, and he was kind of approaching it that way. They needed him to have that killer mentality from a quarterback position. And so you go to Joe Flacco, an established veteran who had played well while Richardson was hurt, and the Colts just did not get out of that what they thought. It was terrible. The offense was crazy bad against the Vikings. It was bad against the Bills. So it really hit a dark point, and again, rock bottom for the whole team at that point. So we kind of grilled Shane Steichen that following Monday after the Bills game. And that was the final time he really had to take questions about why are you guys doing this?
Yeah.
Because if you made the move to Flacco to win games, but you're not winning games and the offense looks worse than it did before, shouldn't you at least go to the developmental quarterback that you might still be hedging your future on? So they did just that. And I think the big thing there is Anthony looked a lot more composed and calm. He had looked so chaotic throughout the year. Like everything was chaos. He looked calm. His footwork was there against the Jets. But a big thing is I thought the Colts had been maybe fitting a square peg into a round hole. They were using him primarily in this like vertical passing game without leaning very much into his mobility. Like they weren't giving him moving pockets. They weren't doing rollouts and bootlegs and all this stuff very often. And it's like you drafted this guy to use his physical gifts, but that's not how the offense is being called. So they go out. He has 10 carries against the Jets. They give him some carries at the goal line, and he punches it in for 2 touchdowns that they absolutely needed. And all of a sudden, it looks like a composed version of the solid player you saw his rookie year.
Right.
So there's a lot more optimism now because a lot of people were out on Anthony when he got benched from the outside, not internally.
Right.
But I mean, there's a lot more room for optimism now. And now it's just about keeping that going forward and building momentum. Was that a flash in the pan, or is that more of a sign of things to come? Now, he's not going to have 3 touchdowns and 270 passing yards every game. But we saw real growth because the Colts attacked it with a heavy ground and pound in the first half, and then the Jets figured that out and stopped it. And then in the second half, the way they came back and won was through the air. And Anthony was not making poor decisions and being careless with the ball. He did have a couple fumbles, but it wasn't reckless play necessarily how we had seen before. But that's kind of what we're looking at on offense is stacking another positive performance.
Tell me about the defense a little bit. Obviously, you got some really good players on the interior of the defensive line, including Buckner and others. But how concerned are you about this secondary against Goff and St. Brown and J-Mo and that group?
Yeah, so I feel like this is a matchup where, I mean, the Colts defense has had to carry the team at times. It's outperformed what a lot of us thought they would do coming into the season. They don't necessarily have terrific depth everywhere in the back end. But the guys who've been out there in the back 7, they have stayed healthy and they've played well. In this matchup, I think it's just going to have to be a focus on fundamentals. Zaire Franklin spoke today, and, we asked, in this kind of matchup where you're facing an offense that doesn't really have many holes or weaknesses, you just get to the basics and make sure your like communications on point, fundamentals, this and that. And I mean, they seem to be confident that they can stand up and do this thing. I think it's probably going to be more of a shootout, but we'll see. Jalen Jones is playing good football. Samuel Womack has as well. They're 2 outside corners. Kenny Moore is Kenny Moore. But up front is what really drives the whole thing for the Colts. And things look a whole lot better with DeForest Buckner back in there. In week 2 or 3, he left with a high ankle sprain and was out several weeks. He's been back for 3-4 weeks now, and things look much better. The pass rush has improved. Laiatu Latu's getting better. The rookie Kwity Paye had 2 sacks last week. They sacked Aaron Rodgers 3 times. DeForest Buckner, of course, has looked good. Grover Stewart is kind of like a DJ Reader type, underappreciated because they're more of the nose. But Grover Stewart's a very productive player. The linebackers is what really kind of worries you. It's just like if Sam LaPorta is out there, Amon-Ra St. Brown's out there, St. Brown. It's the middle of the field. When I watch the Lions, I see the Jared Goff do really good things in the middle of the field, and I think that's going to be open for them in this game because these linebackers are they're not coverage linebackers. They can be taken advantage of at times, and that's what really worries me. Like you talked about a breakout game for Sam LaPorta, this might be it. There's been times where they really struggle to cover tight ends, and LaPorta is right there among the best.
And I saw last week against the Jets, backs out of the backfield hurt you guys. Rodgers didn't have a ton downfield, but checking it down and throwing it to Breece Hall and others seemed to work pretty well against the Colts.
Now, Jahmyr Gibbs, very explosive player. I can see
Yes.
that causing some problems. I mean, their corners are okay at tackling, but if the safeties aren't there to back up, if they're not going to be in the exact right places they need to be, it could be trouble. Now, throwing close to the line of scrimmage on the outside, if it's behind the line of scrimmage, those ones, the linebackers do tend to sniff those out, especially EJ Speed. He does very well at blowing up those type of screens. But if you get the running back like outside in space, moving vertically already, like that could be a lot of trouble. Breece Hall had to play like a 20-yard touchdown doing that to open up the second half last week. So yeah, this for me, I don't think there's going to be any magic sauce for the Colts other than, the pass rush has to be there, and you just can't have like blown assignments and missed tackles. Like it, as corny as it sounds, this is a fundamentals game. Like be where you're supposed to be and like just wrap up tackle. Like you gotta hope that you can do enough of your part that the offense can trade shots with their offense. Like I don't know. There's not going to be any stopping the Lions offense in this one. You just got to hope that you don't let them put 40 or 50 on you and that your own offense can hold up their end of the bargain, I guess.
Yeah. Let's get to some keys, Jake, shall we?
Let's do it. Let's figure out what is going to happen in this game in just a moment. All right. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. And this time of year, we tend to try and give thanks. It's fall, Thanksgiving's coming up. And for me, some of the people in our lives that I would like to give thanks to, I got to shout out my girls, my wife and my daughter. They will never know how much of an escape they are for me from the stresses of everyday life. But this month is all about gratitude. And sometimes there's other people, another person in particular that we don't give enough thanks to, and that's ourselves. It's sometimes hard to remind ourselves that we're trying our best to make sense of everything. And in this crazy world, that isn't always easy. Here's a reminder to send some thanks to the people in your life, including yourself. I think I'm guilty of that a lot. I do a lot of work, but I don't always give myself the grace when I don't get, enough accomplished that I really set out to. So probably wouldn't be a terrible idea for me to look into BetterHelp. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. I think that part's huge because if you want to feel vulnerable and, trust someone with your feelings and thoughts, then you want to, have some chemistry with that person that you're talking to. So that's a big thing that BetterHelp does. Let the gratitude flow with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon today to get 10% off of your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. All right, welcome back to Crossover Thursday, everybody, which is presented by PrizePicks. Remember to go to PrizePicks.com/lockedonNFL and use code all lowercase LockedOnNFL to win $50 instantly when you play Just 5. All right, Matt. So what are you thinking in this one? What are the biggest keys for the Lions? Because, I don't feel like there's been a lot of roadblocks for the Lions I have to face so far. And this probably isn't a matchup you're super afraid of. But if the Lions had to hang their hats on a few things to get the win, what are you thinking?
Well, look, Jake, they got to go on the road, and they've been perfect on the road this year. Their one loss has been at home, and they're probably due to lose a road game. But again, this is a really dominant team that's played so well. They go into every game focused on that game. I do think a short work week coming up after this with the Bears on Thanksgiving, playing 3 games and whatever it is, 11-day span. I mean, it's a lot. Mm-hmm. But I think they want to pay, I don't want to say pay the Bears back, but I think they want to put the Bears away on Thanksgiving and a little Thanksgiving drought. They just got off of what Dan Campbell said was as complete a performance as they could have had against Jacksonville. So maybe a small trap. You want the focus to be there. Another key certainly is stopping Anthony Richardson in the run game. I think it would be smart of Steichen and company to roll them out a little bit, to do what they did on that touchdown where they pulled the right guard and he ran left. I think the Lions could be a little susceptible to that with Derek Barnes and Alex Anzalone, 2 of their better, chase down quarterbacks, linebackers out of this game. And number 3 is just turnovers on the road. Last game they survived the 5 turnovers and the 5 interceptions on the road in Houston. I don't think that'll happen again, but keep an eye on Stewart and Buckner. Don't let them get close to Goff. That pressure in his face sometimes causes some bad throws. So those are 3 things I think the Lions need to keep an eye on. How about for Indy?
Yeah. So for the Colts, there's kind of some newness, with the quarterback situation developing all the time. But I would like to see them establish the run at some point with Anthony Richardson. Jonathan Taylor is going to get carries. They can't always run him throughout the game. They tried early last week, but it didn't work. I think establishing Anthony Richardson as a running threat as well, I think that certainly helps keep the defense honest a little bit. They can't always disguise everything they want to when your quarterback and running back are both effective runners. So get Anthony running a little bit as well. They did it last week for the first time this season, it seemed like. So let's really see them build on that. Limit turnovers. The Colts have had some careless turnovers this year. Anthony in his first stint as the starter, Joe Flacco had some really, really bad ones a couple weeks ago. Turnovers can happen sometimes. Just try and limit those. Like Anthony's had a problem with the sometimes, just the accepting the snap or the handoff exchange has been a problem. He's had a few fumbles based on that. Clean that stuff up because that's so avoidable and it's unnecessary to have creep in and derail things just because you can't get the exchange down. So that, and then the pass rush, I don't think it's realistic to emulate everything Houston did to cause problems for Jared Goff. But they could be getting Tyquan Lewis back, and that is arguably their best depth pass rusher. If you can have Tyquan Lewis and Dayo Adangbo and Laiatu Latu and Kwity Paye all fresh throughout the game because you can rotate healthy guys, that would be really good. Obviously, Buckner and Grover Stewart there in the middle. If you can have an effective defensive line because you're churning guys in and out and they're all kind of getting theirs, I think that goes a long way towards forcing Goff into making some decisions and throws that he maybe doesn't want to. Because I think in this game, to play spoiler, you're going to have to get some turnovers. You're going to have to get some pressure. And so those 3 things in particular, I think the Colts are going to have to do.
Jake, I'm going to take the Lions. I think maybe a little bit of a slobber knocker, like 26-23, something like that. I like Jake Bates on the carpet. He's kicked the ball very well, but Indy plays all close games, man. I'm going to tell you. And I think this week will be closer than last week where the Lions won by 46 points. So what do you think?
Yeah, the Colts don't often get blown out or just do complete no-shows. I wanna see this game be a shootout almost because I just don't know that the Colts are gonna hold the Lions to like a low output. I'm gonna give it to the Lions 34-31.
Okay.
I want to see Anthony build on that performance last week. And it doesn't mean the Colts have to win, but I want to see him be able to respond to another team's touchdowns. And I want to see, if you're scoring 31 points, it probably means you put together a product throughout the game and didn't have these long lulls. That's something the Colts have had problems with offensively, is just long periods of time of not being productive. So I would like to see the Colts offense respond to another strong offense. If the defense holds the Lions 34 points, I think they could probably live with that as long as they did some things right. Like I said, a couple turnovers and some sacks. But just being realistic, I think the Lions do pull this one out about 34-31.
All right, Jake, get ready for the invasion of Lucas Oil Stadium this weekend. There's going to be a lot of Lion fans, but always a pleasure, my friend. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. It is welcoming to other fans. You see a lot of opposing jerseys sometimes. It's a central location.
Yeah,
so,
no, it's a great stadium.
Yeah,
great.
Easy to get to. But yeah, thank you guys for making Locked On Colts and Locked On Lions your first listen today. Now for your second listen, go find the new Locked On NFL now with 2 shows every day. First, you've got the madman Tyler Rowland, who's going to kick off your morning with a double shot of NFL espresso, and then stop by the barbershop with our guy Tony Wiggins for some real NFL talk. Find Locked On NFL on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. And of course, if you don't already follow us on social media, follow the shows. Give us a subscription on YouTube, like and review wherever you listen to podcasts as well. With that, you guys have a great day, and we will see you tomorrow.